Hi. Today I want to speak a little about something that is, at the very heart of existence in general, and synergetics in particular, which is, of course, synergy. Because very often when people do speak to it, which in its own right is a very rare occasion, generally speaking, but when people speak of synergy, it's not quite clear how to fathom it, because it is, a complex topic, and the most simple way of phrasing it that is usually spoken to, something that I often speak to, is the notion that synergy is all those qualities of the whole that one cannot find if the whole is taken apart and we're looking at the parts taken separately. So it is something that lives within the relationships of those so-called parts of the whole. But here is where I diverge a bit from the general lingo, because the more I learned about synergetics and spherical thinking and the ways of the spheres, the more I understand now that really a whole does not consist of parts, because a part is something that we only get if we take a whole apart. However, the whole is membered by its members. So in the terms of an organism, we speak of the organs, and those aren't the parts of the organism, because they wouldn't exist on their own, but they are the members of the organism. And to speak to synergy in such a way is to recognize the nature of the whole. And I think that is really what synergetics is about. It's to make sense of the whole, which isn't that hard once we get used to it. So here is a few examples of wholes and of the synergies that are present with them. For instance, let's consider this structure here. This is a 1,008 ice, quite a popular shape among people to make the very popular geodesic domes from this. Now, if we look at this as a whole, we find what makes it a whole is that it is twofold. It's got both an inside and an outside. And what defines this structure, this whole, is the membrane, which is the members, in this case paper straws and string, and two beads to have a bit of an opening here. But you see, as I take it apart, it instantly loses the integrity it had, the structural integrity that had it be only one shape, and now it's able to shapeshift and move and stuff. So there is something, because there's a significant difference between this being so floppy and then for a change having it be all connected. And when you do play with synergetics and create the structures of spacetime, as is possible with synergetics, you find this time and again. The more complex the member sphere that you're gathering, the more complicated it is to keep hold of it. And then the last bit is usually bringing in some tension into the system, and all of a sudden, as that one last member falls into place, the entire structure becomes one. It integrates, it becomes a single whole. And what was a bunch of moving parts or members a second ago, all of a sudden moves just as one. So that is some way of looking at synergy. And I spoke to this having inside and outside, and that in its own is kind of the base layer of synergy and universe, because anytime we look at anybody within universe, and there is no without universe, because universe is everybody and everything in it. Every time we look at somebody, they always come with a membrane, a boundary that binds their inside to their outside. And those two are absolutely mutually arising. It is impossible to take them apart. So here is a condition of synergy which is so basic to life that it is even impossible to take this apart. We couldn't. How would we take somebody's inside apart from their outside? The only place where that is, convention is in the way we have been taught about geometry and mathematics, because we only ever look at one side of the line that is supposed to divide the plane or whatever we look at. So, people think of a lot when they think outside the box, which is, just a little step further from only thinking in the box. And there's still some way to go to be thinking without the box, which is a lot easier, turns out. So that's one example of synergy, and it's a very Tao kind of synergy, like the philosophers of the ancient China, like Lao Tzu and Zhuangzi and others, who spoke of the Tao as signifying the whole, signifying universe as such. It's the way of everybody, the way of it, the way of universe. The thing that nobody can deviate from, that's the Tao. So looking at yin and yang, they wouldn't call it that, because it's, the two of them together, that's what is important, that's the Tao. But let's take a look at a few more examples of synergy while we're at it. So if we shrunk that dozen eighties into something that we would call a sphere, like this one, this is a ball bearing. This is a very high frequency system, so we can't look in between the atoms of this. It's basically light tight, if you like. If I took this and made the frequency higher so that I couldn't get my finger in, it would be finger tight. The next thing would be watertight, airtight, and eventually light tight, which is opaque. So this is opaque. I can't look into it. However, it's still a collection of a whole lot of atoms that we now know are mostly empty space, whatever that's supposed to be. So it's a collection of frequencies of wave patterns. And this one appears to be spherical, because with all intents and purposes, in synergetics, in spherical thinking, even this would be a sphere. So this is very much so. It's not the ideal sphere of the Greek, but that's not real in the first place. All right, so this one, we also can identify synergy within it as the presence of its inside and outside, as well as the membrane, which wouldn't be there if it wasn't for its members, as well as the center of gravity, which is always another aspect of that integrity of the whole. There's always a center of gravity to the whole, which is the coalescence of all members pulling, drawing in towards one another. So that is all present in this one. Now let's connect this one up with a second sphere. And to emphasize the connection, let's use this straw with some magnets in it. Now we have a pair of spheres, which is where we get the line from in Synergetics. This is the line of connection, not division. And it's a pair of spheres, so it's another level of wholeness, so to speak, because we again have a center of gravity, which is the place where the two spheres meet. They touch there. So by making the relationship between these two ball bearings this big, I'm really saying that this would be the diameter of one of them. This would be the center of gravity, and then there's the sphere. We go one radius out, we meet the second sphere and go one radius in. Twice the radius is the diameter. And with everything in Synergetics, unity, in this case the unit of a pair of spheres, unity is plural, and at minimum 2. Alright, so here is, as I say, another incarnation of synergy. We don't have this center of gravity if we wouldn't have that center of gravity there if it wasn't for all the members being present. Let's go one more. So here, this is now 3 spheres with 2 connections, and we do have an angle here, one that can move utterly freely. So this isn't really a hole yet. It's a whole angle, but is it? Like, currently there's nothing there that defines this as a whole. So let's have these 2 spheres at the ends meet up and touch. So they grow a connection between them. One and, oh, there's a sphere already. Don't need you. Alright, so you see this is still very much moving, dancing around. Nothing is telling us that anything would change when I do have these 2 ends meet. But watch, when they do, we get a whole triangle, a whole eye as I call them, because we can look through in between the 3 spheres here. Take any 3 spheres, put them together, and you can still look through them. So this is a whole. It's a whole plane, it's a whole structure. This is where structure comes from. This is the only shape in the universe that is able to be a shape. And every other shape or form that we find is so because of its inherent triangulation. But why does it stabilize like this? Well, here is synergy, because this is a whole, and if I do take it apart, the members don't show at all that they will be behaving differently when they gather, when they member as a whole. But they do, because as this is a pair, like a pair of levers around a fulcrum here, you know, this angle is free to move, and I get most control at the ends of these rather than in the very angle. That's very hard to manage. Over here it's easier. And when I introduce that 3rd finger here, suddenly it holds that angle in place. So this one holds that, this one holds that, this one holds that. Everybody is holding one another in place, and they can still move as a whole, involute and evolute. I don't have a model of that with me right now, I think not. Usually I do have some not far away, but yeah, ill-prepared. I didn't know where I was going to take this all the way. Anyways, let's go from here, because this is already also, you know, we spoke of it being synergy as being able to hold the shape. It's also got its center of gravity, which I can't hold on to right now because it's in the middle of that eye. But the whole thing has a center of gravity in the middle. And this also has two sides, back and front, which is the same because we can go around, right? But it allows us to go between them, pass through them. And that turns out to be something very important overall, in going into and out of things. But there's no into yet, because there's no inside of this as so far. So let's add more fingers to this, all right? Let's add one more sphere here. So this is again the same kind of free form angle. And with one more finger, that again changes because we get, oops, another hole, which is a pair of eyes, which is the same as one eye being unfolded into its polyform. It's complementary. And this is again a whole pair. However, it's also still able to move like a like a bird or something like that. So let's have the two extremes of this one meet. That one sphere here in the bottom is going to meet up with the one in the top here. And suddenly we get a hole again. And this hole here, this is a 4 eyes. You know, 4 eyes. Very easy to understand why, as it is only 4 triangles, 4 eyes and 4 spheres, and half a dozen, meaning 6 fingers between them. And for the first time, since the very first sphere we looked at, we get inside and outside again. So this now is a proper whole system. The minimum system, or system is synergetics for body, because it's got a membrane binding inside to outside. It's got a center of gravity in the middle there, and it's probably got a whole lot more synergies if we were to look for them. Like this is the only shape that can turn inside out on its own. If I turn this over, what was the outside a second ago is now the inside, and vice versa. So, synergies among synergies. Here's another way to recognize a sense of synergy within this, because this is 4 eyes, right? But it's only 6 fingers, 6 straws. And if I only have 6 straws and I take them individually, or I use them as such, here's 1 eye out of 3. And here's a second out of another 3. So it's 1 eye plus 1 eye. And nothing in the world is telling us that when we do bring these together, we do get not 2 eyes, but 4. Oops. What am I doing? Here. Of course, this would need some more beads or spheres, but that is because this model is going somewhere else still. So here is the 2 triangles added, the 2 members added, and we get 4 eyes. So again, we have synergy. We wouldn't have known that if we were to look at any of the members on their own. So all of that said, let's go to one more level of synergy, because we got the model here, and then it's good for today. Okay, so let's add to this. Let's add one more sphere. Oops, there goes the finger. Here's the sphere with its connection, with its finger, which again is just as free to move as all the ones before. But note how it's still moving when it's holding on there. It's just actively holding on. So it's not really solid or static or anything like that. It's still moving. It's just moving as one, right? Because now it members another eye. And continuing our little game, oops, which is the game of 6 spheres, we get this, which is 6 eyes, or 6 around 1 eye. And note that this is 3, 6, 9 fingers. 6 eyes, 9 fingers. Anyways, again we have a center of gravity in the middle between the two. So this is yet another hole. And with this we find another complementarity, you know, polyform pointing 2 ways. We wouldn't have expected that necessarily by taking a look only at 1 4 eyes on their own. So, but we got more spheres to come, so add 1, have that angle free, add a second finger, and have this one link up, whoop, with another corner here, with another sphere. We got another hinge. Let's add 1 more finger. Oops, not there. There. Okay, so here's 8 eyes. 8 eyes around 2. And this is the 3 tet arc. It's 3 4 eyes. 3 times the volume of the first one. We can't tell by looking at it like this, but this is the seed to grow things like the tetrahelix, you know, and many other beautiful things come out of this. But let's do a quantum jump and take this connection here and turn it between these two. So we turn it by the angle of precession, the angle of dynamic interrelationship, and have it meet not these 2 spheres, but the one up there, and this one here. And what we get out of that is the 8 eyes. Alright, so this is 8 eyes as they come. And with this I'm going to stop with the game for now, but pointing out that we have added 2 4 eyes together. So this is 6 of the purple and 6 of the pink straws. That's, you know, taking separately, that would make 4 triangles. 4 times 3 is a dozen. When we put them together into 4 eyes, it's 2 4 eyes. But when we put those together, we get 1 8 eyes. Okay, 2 times 4 is 8, that's true. However, the volume of this is not just that, because remember I moved, now I lost it. I moved that 1 straw, and when I did that, the whole thing went from a quantum volume, which is the volume in terms of 4 eyes volumes, a quantum volume of 3 as that arc of 3 4 eyes, turned into a quantum volume of 4 in the 8 eyes, which I've just lost. But that again is a way of recognizing synergy at play, because we find that we add 2 4 eyes and we get a volume of 4 times them. So again, synergy comes in. And that is all I've got to say for the time being on the topic. I hope this helps to grasp some of the qualities of what makes the whole, and any one of its members. And I hope it helps you get a way into what Synergetics is about. With that, have a good time. Bye-bye.